Scale, exit, repeat.
7 values of highly effective founders. That's what we're talking about today on The Complete Entrepreneur. This is a show we do every Thursday, and sometimes because of the holidays, but we are running, this is our last show of the year. It actually is the 200th podcast as well. So this show syndicates into a podcast. It also becomes a national article printed on or published on startup.club, which gets national exposure. And we do everything we can to try to share the information. Michael Gilmour is our host. He comes from Australia, down under, right, Michael? And he's just joined us right
Hi,
now.
yeah, it's good to be here. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you perfectly. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, not a problem at all. It's wonderful to be here. I can't believe it's the 200th show.
It's a 200th podcast.
It's,
Yeah, it's our 200th show between The Complete Entrepreneur and Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed, which we do every Friday at 2 o'clock Eastern. Tomorrow we're doing one on 2026, the 2026 businesses to launch based on trends and interest rates and all those kind of things. But today it's all about the 7 habits or 7 values of highly effective founders. And we're trying to really crack a code here of what it is that these founders do to create wealth. Okay. And there are some
yeah,
consistencies. And today we're going to decode it, and we're going to try to come up with 7. We might come up with 8 or 9 or 10, but we'll distill it down to 7 in the article. But 7 habits of highly effective founders. That was actually supposed to be the title. I know it's a little bit off here on the website or on the clubhouse, but 7 habits of highly effective founders. Michael, this is an area I know that matters a lot to you. You're working on a book. You've talked about it, and I
yeah,
felt like
yeah,
this sort
absolutely.
of covers that a little bit, at least touches upon it.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And I saw the title and I thought, wow, this is going to be a great show. And it's one I'm very passionate about is what are the habits, what are the principles that successful entrepreneurs actually have in their life? And you set through the list of what are the 7 habits, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's a lot of different sort of habits, but what is the macro stage up? And I thought of things such as, yeah, focus on your expenses or something like that. Or I think as a macro level, there was one I was thinking of, which was be disciplined. Be disciplined, go for the long term. Don't, another one would be don't think about the small incremental gain over time becomes a giant result. So many people like drop out in the small ones. So there's a whole stack of them, Colin, that is going to be a fun just to unpack with you. And I know you, in the blurb you sent through, you had one for yourself. By the way, Colin, I've got a problem with my headphones at the moment. Can you just bear with me? I'm going to have to drop out, then I'll come back and join in. I'm getting some weird stuff happening here with my headphones. But
Yeah,
you
you
may want
sound
to
good
share
on our
one.
side, Michael, but we will do that and drop out right now. And let's
Yeah.
kick it off with the first habit. So, we're talking about the 7 habits of highly successful entrepreneurs. If you're in the audience and you are an entrepreneur, and you have a particular habit you think makes a difference, please raise your hand. Come join us on stage. We'd love to have you on stage and make this conversation more interesting. This is a community. This is the community called Startup Club. We do this show every Thursday, except for holidays. We do this show every Thursday, and we also do an article. So this show will become a national article printed on startup.club. The website, by the way, is just blowing up. It is exploding. It is becoming the number one source on in the United States, at least, maybe Canada, the United States, around startups, and the information that's printed there is getting top rank on Google. And we're actually looking for contributors. If you have an expertise in a particular area, if you have one of these habits that you do on a daily basis that can make you successful, or these values, we want to hear from you as well. And we'd love to have you write about that. Start with the first habit, the very first one. And I'm gonna go with
By the
the
way, Colin,
habit or
I'm back.
value. Or you can go interchangeable. Hey, Michael, welcome back. But I was going to go with this idea, Michael, of that all entrepreneurs, the successful ones, are. I don't know how to say this nicely because I have I'm background is Scottish and Polish, and we're cheap as a Scot. The Polish the same way, but this idea of being very being very careful of your expenditures. I can't get the wording right. I don't know why, but this idea that everything you do, you're always watching the dollar. You're always being paranoid of spending money. And I think that's a habit of a highly successful entrepreneur. Now, we're not talking about the Silicon Valley entrepreneurs and you raise hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars and you launch a company like OpenAI. There are those exceptions out there, but what we're talking about is the average entrepreneur, those who want to become successful, those who want to make millions of dollars. One of those habits is being cheap. I don't know what else to say. That's the way I think of it.
Look,
And
Colin, I agree with you on that. I
let
completely
me
agree,
give
by
you
the way.
let me give you a personal example, and that's what we're going to try to do. So we're going to try to do a habit, and then try to give you an example. My example on this one is my Tesla is turning 10 this year. I bought one of the first
Yeah,
Model X's,
congratulations.
and exactly, and I still love it. I still drive it. 10 years old, and I remember reading the book, The Millionaire Next Door. And in that book, they talk about the average age of a car of successful millionaires is 10 years old. So this idea that we don't waste money, we're very careful about money. I think that's one of the key habits of every entrepreneur is that they're is it cheap, Michael? Is there another way of saying this, or am I doing
No, it's not being cheap, it's being prudent.
prudent?
A classic example,
Prudence, thank you.
myself with cars. Myself with the cars is I drove a Golf R32, which is like a GDI, and I had it for 16 years. Yeah, I love that car. It was a great car. It was a little pocket rocket. And it was just a great car, but I had it for 16 years. And people would say, "You got the money. Why don't you go along and buy a new car?" Because I love the one I've got. Yeah. And uh, I find some people, they don't watch their expenses. Like me, I watch all the expenses in the business. In fact, my accountant said to me, "I can't believe how you're managing the company so you maximize resources, minimize profits so you can use a lot more, have a lot more resources and accelerate the company forward." And I said, "Yeah, that's because I'm watching every expense." Just I'm traveling to the US in January, and I was looking at the business class airfares because it's a long way to travel, right? And they're crazy prices. And I said to my chief revenue officer and also the person that does all of our social media and everything like that, I said to them, "We're not traveling business. It's insane, the pricing. We're just not doing it." And they grumbled and mumbled and everything. Let me tell you, decisions made. We're not traveling business. That's all there is to it, because it just didn't make any sense. And I do that all over the place in the business, Colin, because you have to be prudent. If you don't have a clear picture of your financial position, I would say you're out of control. Like for me, I get a full report every single month from my CFO of exactly the state of each part of the business, and I then translate those figures into a projected cash flow model.
Yeah, I think that's like being aware, right? The
Yeah,
first one was
you,
watch every penny. I like that one
yeah,
better. That's the best way of saying it. The best
yeah. Watch
entrepreneurs,
every
the
penny.
successful entrepreneurs. One of the habits is watch every penny, and then the second one, which you're bringing up right now, is this idea of being aware of
Yeah,
everything in your organization and everything that's happening in your organization.
yeah, I think so. But there's people like Elon Musk. He lived in a trailer down
I don't know. It's a whole other
in Brownsville.
equation here.
Yeah, yeah. It's just he just didn't need it. The other thing is this: is the thing I find with stuff. Let's separate out the business versus the personal, because we're talking about the complete entrepreneur here.
Yeah.
On the personal side, every time you buy something, you've got to think, "I've got to now look after this." Do you want that responsibility? You've bought this thing, whatever it is, and now you've got to look after it. You've got to put it in a spot, or is it really that important? And the thing I find is that I'm less interested in things, I'm more interested in experiences. And that's just for me personally. But it's like, you get some people and they're spending. Like I said to a guy where his business was in catastrophic failure. And I looked at his personal life, and his personal life, his expenses were so out of control.
You
He
talking about
had to
me?
put a his
Yeah, that's
expenses
okay.
were so out of control that he ended up having to go along and take so much money out of the business, his business was failing. And I said to him, you don't have a revenue problem in your business. You have an expense problem, and you have an expense problem in your business because your personal expenses are out of control. You've got to reevaluate them. Like when I went through a tough time
So it's interesting. So
financially,
the habit doesn't just go in your company; it's in your personal life.
no, it's got to be in your personal life, because your personal life will force you to take money out of the company so you can survive. Like when we went through a tough time, my wife and I, this is back in the year 2000 or something like that, and it's a longer story. But the thing I discovered was how little you could actually live on. And
Yeah.
let me tell you, like we went down, my wife would go shopping for the food for the family, and she would look for all the cheap stuff. And she would see, say, some meat, which was cheap back in those days. She's vegetarian now, but she saw some meat back in those days. And she would get it so cheap, and she would put it in the freezer so she could break it up and that sort of stuff. And we found, like, the necessity is the mother of invention. We end up renting out our son's bedroom at one stage, our daughter's bedroom. My son actually lived under the stairs like Harry Potter. He thought it was great. He loved it. We rented it out to foreign students. We rented out a living room to a business needs some space for a period of time, for a few months. You
So you
look
do
at your
whatever it
assets.
takes. It's a
You do what
tenacity. It
it
sounds like
takes.
that's the habit.
Maybe that's another habit. You do whatever it takes. But at the same time, we watched every single penny. And I remember we saved up $100. Just think about that statement for a start. We saved $100. And by saving $100, it launched me into a completely different business direction and all that sort of stuff. And the rest is history. Yeah. So you've got to watch every penny personally. Every penny counts. Every single penny. My personal CFO, i.e., my wife, she's really good on this front. But then, Colin, I'm going to switch it over. When you actually, to this day, by the way, we watch every single penny. But when we go on vacation, I don't care. Just spend whatever you like. You've got to have a time also where you can just let the purse strings go, as I say. And it's funny, during that tough time, Rosalind, my wife, said, You're just Mr. No. You would say no to everything." And I said, "Yes, because I have to get the family back on track and all that sort of stuff financially." But now she said, "You're Mr. Yes." And particularly when we're on vacation or something. And Colin, you've seen some vacations. The answer is yes. Let's do it. Yeah, and the reason why is because you also have to take the other side of the coin, which is you've got to give yourself some rewards as well as an entrepreneur. But you can't give yourself the rewards before you have the profit. Some people say, "I deserve this." What's that got to do with it? What do you mean by you deserve it? What are you, a child? Like, seriously, just delayed gratification. That's one of the biggest things that an entrepreneur needs to learn
They've
is your
done a study
ability.
on that, Michael. They did a
Have they?
study with 3-year-olds who had delayed gratification. It was a psychological study, a very famous study. And they gave the 3-year-olds, they gave them an option. They said, you can have a chocolate now, or you can wait 2 minutes and have two chocolates, or 3 minutes, or something like that. And the children that grabbed the chocolate right away, they tracked for 20 years. And they tracked the children that didn't, obviously, that more delayed their gratification. And they tracked him for 20 years, and 20 years later, they discovered that the children who had delayed their gratification were much more successful than the other children. And that's fascinating because I think this idea of get rich quick, which has been popularized by all these master classes and all these companies and all this, I don't think it's actually a habit of highly successful founders. I think a habit is
No, it's
delayed
not.
gratification.
No, you're dead right. Just think about when you're building a business, Colin, is you're building a foundation. It's like building a house. You're building a foundation, you got to build the walls and all that sort of stuff. Then you got to build the roof. And you slowly construct your house, your business house, called that way. And I've seen some entrepreneurs, they lay the foundation and they put up a wall and then they just take the wall down, the equivalent of taking the wall down, but then they want to put the roof on. Why they take the wall down is because they took a whole lot of money out of the business. They started a business of cash. And then finally, the bank comes along and forecloses on their business house because they didn't have the complete vision to follow through on the delayed gratification. Being an entrepreneur, by very definition, is delayed gratification. You don't step into a business and start earning $300,000 a year, something like that. You step into a business, you earn zero. That's what you step in. You earn zero, but you have this vision one day that you're going to be earning $500,000, $1 million, and so forth, like that. It's delayed gratification. And some people can do that, and some people can't. And they can't do it because they've got expenses. And so they can't afford delayed gratification anymore, or they can't do it because they cannot resist their urges and their impulses. I deserve this. The world owes me this. It's so unfair. I see this friend of mine, they're successful. Why aren't I successful? Rather than using that as a way to go and inspire them forward, they use it as a way to go along and actually destroy their own business. And they make silly decisions. And
We almost should do a
I,
show of 7 habits of not very effective founders, and one of them would
oh
be
yeah,
jealousy, right?
oh, jealousy is right up there.
That's what you're saying,
Um,
right? Just the whole idea, like Elon Musk is worth $600 billion. Why can't I, like, blah blah blah?
yeah,
No, he's an inspiration. I know he's an inspiration to you and I, Michael,
yeah,
right? Because that's what
absolutely.
we
Well,
look at. We look at somebody like that and say, how can we learn from them? That's the habit right there, the curiosity and learning, and how to learn and better ourselves. But there are
yeah, well,
those who those who are very jealous of his success or anyone else's success or their brother's
I was,
success or their
yeah,
spouse, whatever it is, right? And that's it's one of those opposite shows, like 7 habits of not highly effective entrepreneurs.
it's interesting. I was talking to an entrepreneur, and he gave me an incredible compliment. And at the same time, it was a very sage lesson. He said to me, "I'm actually so angry at you, Michael." And I'm going, "Well, why is that?" He said, "You genuinely get happy for other people's successes. I'm not like that. They just make me really angry." And I thought, that's a sad way to live your life. Be inspired by other people's successes, by your brother's success, by your sister, by your friends, by your colleagues, whatever. Be inspired by them. Don't get angry. Be inspired. And to me, it's just when he shared that with me, this entrepreneur, I was very confused. I'm thinking, how could you not get inspired by someone else's success? How could you not? It's not as if getting angry at them is going to give you anything. You may as well use it and become incredibly inspired to drive your own business forward. Yeah, so it's just, Colin, there's a lot of things that I've seen, and I know you've seen in entrepreneurs, and there's very positive traits like we want to focus on right now. And there's also the negative side, as you're saying, where you've seen some entrepreneurs become self destructive with their own businesses. But anyway, I noticed we got Elle in the room here. Elle, it's fantastic to see you. It'd be great to go
Hello.
along and hear your thoughts in this matter, Elle.
Oh, thank you for getting my name right. I usually get Ellie, so thank you.
No,
How
my
I got
daughter is
here.
Ellie,
Oh yeah.
so I know the
Thank you.
difference.
Okay, thank you for bringing me up. I think it was probably in regards to my comment in regards to I taught my son one of the biggest things, the other side of the coin is value. Because I'm a project manager, I'm a technical project manager in my day to day life. So everything evolves around time, quality, money. And if you take one of the things away, reduce it or whatever, something's going to suffer. So one of the things I taught my youngest son was about value. So it was around his birthday. I was like, all right, Aiden, we can have a very large party and you can have lots of people and all your friends and all this other stuff, but you will not get, it was a very simple example. I was like, you're not going to get as many presents as you want. And I showed him all the things that would be impacted by if he had a very large party, if his scope was large. However, if you value your time, maybe have a smaller number of group of people, you'll get more gifts and you can have more time with your friends. And I explained it to him, and he took a few days because, of course, he wanted the really large party. He took a few days and he thought about it, and I think I want the smaller party. I want the smaller group of people. And I was like, so why'd you choose that? And he explained it to me. He was like, I really don't know all those other people. I thought about it. They're okay, but I don't know them like that. And I'd rather have more time with this person because they're always nice to me. They always do this. And of course, I would like more gifts because you're not spending so much money on all this other stuff. So he learned, and he does this now, he learned about the value and how important his time is and how important quality is. Because I think it's great to be frugal and prudent, but you also need to think about where you need to be just as frugal with your time. Because sometimes the if you spend the money for your time, then that actually sometimes gives you a better quality of life. You also have a, maybe it might be a better quality product. Because I'm a founder myself, and I'm one of those people, because I'm a project manager, I do everything myself. But because of that type of personality that I have, I realized that my path to foundership and building my company will be slower if I didn't hire the people I need to put the value into whatever product it is. So I think there's two sides to the coin. That's all.
Yeah, look, Al, you've really touched on some things. I think the concept of value, whether it's value of time or in the story you taught your son. I'm not sure exactly how old your son
Oh,
is, but let me tell you,
one's
uh,
22 and the other one's 29 now. So what? Yeah. So
interesting. I bet you that they'll carry that with them for the rest of their life. And I bet you it's not the first time you taught them that lesson. That was an example. Yeah.
they analyze stuff. They won't waste they're big on not wasting their time. Both of them are. For them to be so young, especially boys, because I know men into boys, some of them, as if you ever racing, they're very like the shiny thing, or either the quick gratification, but they very much value their time and they assess where they put their time. And they really think about, if I put my time into this, what am I going to get out of it
I
before
think that's a value.
Interesting.
I think that's one of them.
Yeah.
Think valuing
Yeah.
your time, right, Michael? Is
Oh,
that a
that's
habit of highly
absolutely critical.
successful entrepreneurs? They
It-
value their time. I remember Steve Jobs. Remember he would say, like, just before he knew he was going to die, it was like, I don't have, I'm acting and behaving like I am going to die. He had a very famous speech. He talked about that, and that time is very limited. The other good philosopher I like is Gandalf, Tolkien,
yes.
who wrote. Give me a second here. I'm doing everything from memory. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that's left to us.
That's right.
There you go. And I like that, Al. You're really bang on.
Gandalf the Grey in the Mines of Moria talking to Frodo.
I think being a project, growing up in a military household, and I'm prior military, everything is about time
Yeah.
and where you
No,
put that.
absolutely.
What do they say? Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift.
That's a good saying as well. Now, see, the other thing I find just talking about time is, and I wrote an article on this many years ago, that most entrepreneurs value their time at zero. And that's a really bad way to run a business. What I highly recommend is entrepreneurs actually essentially build the business for their time, but then they forgive the debt once a quarter. Yeah, but bill it so that you can actually begin to measure it. You get a sense of this is actually value. My time has value. I could be doing something else. What is the opportunity cost for my time? Yeah. So I, yeah, I've always built my businesses for my time, always. I may not have taken the cash out of the business, but I've always built the business. Even the current business right now, my current business at the moment, it owes me a whole lot of money, and but I may not take it because I can use that in my business elsewhere and to be more effective and things like that. Interesting one. So, Colin, so we touched on a few of them, and this one is that successful entrepreneurs value their time.
I like the way the conversation is going because we're just flowing back and forth. We
Yeah.
sometimes write out some pre notes. One of them I did write out was always be selling. And I think that
Yes.
is a habit of a lot of successful entrepreneurs that were, and to the chagrin of my kids and my wife, I'm always out there selling. I'm wearing a t-shirt right now. We're actually filming this right now, and it'll be cut, chopped up and put into TikTok videos. And I'm wearing a t-shirt that shows start, scale, exit, repeat there. And my car has a is wrapped in a pod.com. Pod.com is one of the companies that we have in our incubator here. And we wrapped my car, we wrapped my boat, which is on the intercoastal, a million
Yeah.
people see it a year. We're always selling, we're always promoting. I'm in an elevator, I meet someone, or someone has a dog, and I'm like, oh, did you hear about paw.com? We're having a sale this week, it's 65% off. I think that there's this innate desire to keep selling, keep promoting, keep making things happen. It depends on the type of business, obviously, but every one of us who are successful entrepreneurs, we're always selling. And I know it reminds me of Glengarry Glenn Ross, always be selling or always be closing. No, ABC, always be closing. Now I say to my kids, ABC, always be charging their devices. But the reality is always be selling, ABS. What do you think, Michael, about that one? Because you've seen me at trade shows. Like I work it. Like I go to a trade show and I worked those trade shows. Everybody in my company wears the company T-shirt. I sit in the front row, and the speaker often looks at me and quotes me in the speech or something like that. I'm always working it. And what is that habit? What is that? It is tenacity, but it's also always be selling. Am I on the right track on that one?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I find, yeah, I'm the same as you. Like I actually openly say to people if I'm going to a conference, make sure you book some time. If you want to meet with me, book some time with me because don't think you'll just bump into me as such, because the odds are I've got a meeting. Yeah, and work it. And it's like you're saying, wearing the t-shirt or the polo shirt and everything like that. To me, that's just free promotion. Like an entrepreneur who doesn't take advantage of free promotion is just insane. Like all of my team have shirts at the conference.
Well, walk into a conference.
We
I walk into the pet conference, one of the largest in the world, Orlando. Very few
Yeah,
people are wearing the company shirts. I'm like,
this is
why are you
crazy.
there? You're spending
Yeah,
$200,000 to show a booth and whatnot, and you go to the social and nobody's wearing a. We're the only ones wearing the paw.com t-shirts or whatever it is. Like, why are you there? It's always be selling. It's always be promoting. It's always connecting. And when you're promoting, I don't just talk about customers. I'm talking about employees, bringing employees along and selling them a vision, and bringing investors along and selling them a vision, and you're bringing a team along, and you're making things happen because you're always promoting, but you're doing it in an authentic way. Because there is a difference between just promoting, selling, blah, 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 and you sound like a used car salesperson, or someone who actually truly believes in what they're doing and what they're selling. And that probably
yeah.
leads to the next value, Michael, or the next habit, which is believe in what you're doing.
I was going to say that. I was going to tell y'all I'm really bad at selling just because one, I just being an introvert and stuff, but what I'm really good at is inspiring people. So I think they're the same thing, but they're not the same thing. I think was his name Simon Sinek said people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do
Yeah.
it. And I lead with that, so I don't get so nervous when thinking about selling. I try to inspire first, more than anything. And if you like my product, cool. If you don't, maybe the next thing I build, you'll like it. You'll be inspired to use it.
I like that better than
But Elle,
selling.
Because I'm terrible at
Elle,
selling.
let me tell you, share with you a story. I took one of my daughters to a conference one time, and she said to me, "So who are we selling to?" I said, "We're not." She said, "What do you mean by we're not?" I said, "We're not selling." And she said, "Hang on a second here. I thought we're here, we're doing business." And I said, "Yes, we will." She said, "What are we doing?" I said, "We're going to have some meetings and we're going to listen. And if we can help people, we will help them. And if we can help them with what we're doing, then that's great." And it turned it in a very different mindset for my daughter that, oh, so we need to listen first. Yes, we need to listen. And then we need to work out if we can help them. And it could be that we recommend they go elsewhere, but be authentic in that process of, I want to help this person. And if there's a deal to be done, then first of all, listen. Like I always have this view of, you've got 2 years, one mouth, use them in those proportions. And like, just listen. So that's what you're doing. You're actually being authentic,
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
and
Because
you're sharing about your vision.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. That's the
that
best way.
that's selling, just in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think it. I'm gonna be honest. There's some people that like to be sold to. They love the experience of having somebody curate a selling experience to them and do all that stuff. My dad loves going to deal with the car salesman, whereas me, I hate it. I hate being sold to because it feels like I'm a product, which essentially I am. But I do love empowering and inspiring people and telling them new ways of doing things. So if you're somebody like me, if you're like that on an audience and you're not big into selling and you get nervous thinking about it, just think about it as you're in trying to inspire somebody. Because I'm one of those people. I love authentic experiences, and I love the sincerity that happens when people are there to inspire and empower, and that kind of leads me to buy products from there or to support you in your services.
I like the way you two have been framing this because I came across, oh, we should be selling as that's a habit, but it's not. The habit I'm hearing more here is, and I'm agreeing with you actually. This is why we're having an open conversation, right? We're not like this isn't something we rehearse. We don't sit here and write out notes in advance. But this idea of helping people, and it's like, and I go back into, and I'm starting to reflect now a little bit on the companies I've done, whether it's Hostopia, which was email and web hosting, or .club, which is a .club domain extension. It was helping people develop a brand or have lower cost access to building a website or accessing email. With a startup club, it's about, we have an incubator here. It's about helping. It's all about helping. So so the habit of the highly successful entrepreneurs is that they find a way to help people and they make money from that. And maybe
Yeah.
that's a difference between us and a teacher, right? Who works my wife's a teacher, she works at a school, and so maybe that's the difference between her and I, or your wife, as I know Michael is a nurse and nurse practitioner or whatever. But it's, we all help people, but the difference with an entrepreneur is we help and we monetize that. Does that make sense? I don't know. Am I crazy
Yeah.
here?
Yeah. I think also, when I reflect on it, the best salespeople are the ones where you don't feel like you're being sold to. What they're doing is they're working out how to help you, and they're the best salespeople. I love a good sales experience like that. I can't stand a person who thinks that the way to get a sale is a high pressure, is and to beat the potential customer into submission. I actually don't agree with that. I think the sale experiences I enjoy are the ones where the person is being incredibly helpful, and they'll guide the conversation. And at times, yeah, I'll even say to them, like, love this product, going to buy this. The upsell, you'll need to do some work on that one. I'm not going to take that. And yeah, so it's good like that. I've got another one for you, Colin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Another successful thing. Be ethical. Be
Wow, that's an
ethical.
interesting one. That's a deep one, and that's the slow go to making money.
Oh
I
yeah,
could. All right, let me. Okay, it's just gonna. Okay,
but
all
it's
right, I gotta be careful
foundational
here. I
though.
gotta be careful. But
It's
my grandmother used to sell, and she was so cheap, and she was good in her own way. She taught us that when we sell a raspberries, she was the raspberry queen of Ontario. That she would put the raspberries at the not so good ones at the bottom and the good ones at the top. And I always thought that was like, I don't know, just something seemed wrong about that, right? Because when
It
someone
is.
takes the pint and they take it home and says, "Oh, I got tricked here a little bit," and then the next time I'm not going to go back to them. So yeah, you can make that short-term dollar. And by the way, she was a great person, a great entrepreneur. I don't want to be too mean. Like I don't know why I do this stuff on these shows because I totally throw myself under the bus and people around me. But the reality is that we need to put our best raspberries at the bottom of those pints. We need to, and that is a longer term goal. And I've met, so my kids are like unbelievable. Oh, I just want to get rich quick. I just want to do this. I just want to do that. No, the way to get rich isn't by tricking people. It isn't by getting something a little extra here and a little extra there. The way to get rich is by giving more and having integrity in the way you do everything. And one of my core values, and this is in the book, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. One of my core values is integrity over money. That's my personal core value. Okay.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
translates into all my companies. So we have fired employees. I've fired really good salespeople. It hurts me to do this. It really hurts me. I fired really good salespeople who were tricking customers or doing things that did not meet the values of our company.
Yeah. I
And
completely agree with that.
and and,
I've
and
done the
by the
same.
way, we would
Yeah.
have made a lot more money a lot faster had I not fired those salespeople. But by firing those salespeople, it taught everybody in this organization this is who we are. My customers, I've been in meetings with I was in a meeting with a Colombian customer with our data platform, was this email platform, and the employees were pitching and they were not listening to the customer. And I stopped the meeting. I said, guys, stop. The customer doesn't want to go that way. The customer has different needs. And this is what we need to address. And it's similar but different. I understand that. But the point is I'm trying to
Yeah.
make here is that you can take the longer path, but trust me, you're gonna make a lot more money. Right now, like when I raised $7 million in 30 days from 36 LinkedIn contacts, I had 27 of them that I reached out to, invested in my company. $7 million in 30 days. Why they do it? They did it because they believe in me. They trust me.
That's right.
In my prior adventures, I could have taken a $500,000 salary, $1 million salary, taken all the profits, done and I could have made a lot of money, but I didn't. Put that aside and I said, I'll take less money. And in fact, in that particular venture where we raised $7 million, I never took a salary for 7 years. All right. You know what? And by the way, we sold it to GoDaddy. It was a big success, blah, 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 blah. Everybody made millions. That's not the point. The point was that we have like integrity over money is actually a way to make more money. I know this is counterintuitive to all the get rich quick kids out there and everybody who wants to get rich. No, there's a way of getting rich by people believing in who you are and trusting who you are and then leveraging that trust to make more money down the path. But it takes a little more time. It takes a little more time.
No, I kind of agree with you more, Colin. It's I'm reflecting on. It's interesting you're talking about salespeople. I had this sales guy one time. It was in a sales meeting, and he said, "Look, I've saved the company $10,000." I said, "Fantastic! How did you do that?" He said he explained that he told the customer this particular situation, so we didn't have to do a make good. And I said, "I'm sorry." Yeah, he said, "Yeah, so we don't have to make good, and the customer will never find out that we actually stuffed up." And I said, "But that's a lie. We did stuff up." And he said, "Yeah, but I've saved us $10,000." He was like patting himself on the back. And I said, "Have you documented the lie? Have you put the lie in the CRM system? So we're now all party to the lie. Have you considered that when we go to a conference and there's a bunch of people standing in a circle and this guy shares something that we have done now, that the other people will know it was a lie too? So what are you going to do in that situation?" And that person, they were gone. Let me tell you, I do not put up with lies. You do not lie. Doesn't mean you hang out your dirty washing or something like that in front of people, but you never lie. You do not lie. And if you find yourself in a lie of omission, not commission, I remember another time where I said to a major partner of ours, I said something, and I thought, there's something in my conscience just twigged. And I went to him the next day and I said, look, I said this thing to you, and I just wanted to clarify it to make sure you fully understand. He said, no, I got it. It was all good. I said, fantastic. I didn't want to be in a situation that there was a lie of omission or versus even commission. Yeah. To me, it's being ethical is the road to success. As you said, Colin, because you're ethical, you raised $7 million in 30 days. I'm not sure how many people in this room right now or listening to this podcast realize what an incredible feat that is to raise $7 million so quickly. And you're doing it on the basis of your relationships, on the basis of your integrity. No one's going to give you any money if you do not have a great reputation. No one's going to do it. And being ethical and upright. I'm not saying, look, all stumble and fall. Pick yourself up, make amends, apologize, and move on. But be ethical. That's your mindset, is be ethical. And as part of being ethical, there was another time I had a business back in the 90s, and it was going through a very tough time. And this guy comes in, he said, oh, look, love your technology. I want to use it. And I want to pay you literally millions. And I said, fantastic. What are you going to do with it? He said, what I want to do is use it for the porn industry so I can market porn to teenagers so I can get them hooked on it. And then they'll be worth a lot of money in the future as they get older. And I said to him, I wish you didn't tell me that. But you did tell me that. And I'm not going to be involved in that area. And so I walked away for a huge deal because of my ethics. Yeah. So if you're ethical and you behave that way, then it is a slower road to success. But it's much more stable, it's much more sound. But more than that, you'll wake up and you'll look in the mirror and you go, what I see. And to me, that's worth far more than money. Far more than money. Yeah. So that's my view on ethics, Colin and Elle.
Oh.
I'm not sure if either of you have anything else to add to that.
Part of being ethical and just listening to you is also a big part of being an entrepreneur or even having a startup is letting go of relationships that don't work well with your business, whether it's ethical or
I
you have a
agree.
different vision.
I agree.
And one of the
Yeah.
experience I recently had when I decided to come up with and it leads to ethics and letting go, is that I had a partner who was a friend and he's great at sales. Like he's great at sales. So I assumed in my head, I'm not good at sales. This person be good at sales. And one of the things he was like, yeah, because my company is based, one of the products is using AI and there's going to be a lot of data collected on individuals. His first thought was we could sell the data or we can use affiliate partnerships. And I was like, no, because I'm building my product based upon how I feel about stuff. And I don't like knowing that my data is being used to be sold off to people or do anything. Yeah, you can use it within the company to market to your members better, to curate better experiences, but to sell it, no. So we had different ideology, and I told him, I was like, look, I don't think this partnership's going to work out because one, I don't want my users, especially if I'm saying I'm not selling their data or I'm not going to do this, I'm going to stick by that and their data won't be sold. So we actually had to like break ways because we just had a
Mm.
different vision of how it goes. And that leads to ethics for me when it comes to data privacy, because that's the field that I'm in. I'm very big about privacy and data. And I wouldn't want somebody selling my data.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I most definitely wholeheartedly believe in what you're saying.
Yeah. What a great story. Look, moving on to another value, Colin. Here's one which is going to be counterintuitive. Be generous. Be generous. And the one of the things I used to say to my former business partner, who's now retired, I'd say to him, the enemy of the generous is the fair. It's not the person who's not generous. The enemy of the generous is the fair. As soon as you have a situation where someone's trying to be fair in a deal, you've actually lost it. It doesn't work. You need to be in business relationships with either both parties are trying to be generous. And then it becomes a really different conversation. It becomes a lot more profitable conversation in the end, believe it or not, by being generous. Be generous with your staff. Be generous. Pay. Don't go along and try to skimp. Don't try to just screw them to the wall. Be generous. Be generous with partners. Like one of the things I actually enjoy doing is giving away in a deal, giving away something at the end. So you may be negotiating a commission rate or something like that on a deal. And I'll negotiate very hard the whole way. But the very end, it could be quite a lengthy process, I'll give something away. I'll just give it to them because I want to be generous. It's something I didn't have to do. And it comes down to an era of generosity comes down to things such as the spirit of the agreement versus the letter of the agreement. And this is where I think a lot of lawyers they forget this. And the spirit of the agreement is when you put your hand out and you shake hands on the overarching principles. The letter of the agreement is if you find yourself looking at the letter of the agreement, you know the relationship has gone off the rails. Is what was it when you first shook hands? What was it? The spirit of the agreement. And you can end up wasting huge amounts of time trying to go along and using my sort of technical hat, trying to lock down in an agreement every use case, every eventuality, and all that sort of stuff. And that's why I always love if I'm doing an agreement, I always put at the end, if there is some sort of disagreement, the process, and the first step in the process is the two parties get together and discuss it. That's what it is. That and to me, that's trying to get back to what the spirit of the agreement was trying to achieve. And it's going in with an air of generosity and a mindset of being generous as well. Colin, I'd be interested in your thoughts on that. It's counterintuitive, but I have made so much more money over my business life being generous than I have been like trying to squeeze every single dime out of someone.
I agree. Generosity is there. I'm not certain it's one of the 7 habits of highly effective entrepreneurs. I'm going to throw this out there. It definitely is when you've made it giving back. There's something about give to get, and that could be a habit. I'm not gonna say it's not. I'm not saying it's not on the list, but I do believe that give to get pays off. That when you ultimately give to your employees, when you give to your customers, when you give to the disadvantaged, to those in your community, and you help them out, then you're going to get it come back in spades. It's going to come back in spades. And that's a little bit like the long term again, how with integrity over money, it takes a little bit longer to make money, but you're going to make more money ultimately. When you give to get, you'll
Yeah.
probably make more money too. You're probably right on that one. That is definitely one of the habits.
Yeah, yeah. I think another habit is the successful entrepreneurs have a learning mindset, constantly learning. And by that, I mean they hold things very lightly as well, hold opinions lightly. What do I mean by that? So you may think that you should go ahead in a certain direction. And say you're developing a technical product, you say, we should do this. But you're in a team meeting and someone else makes a better suggestion or a better idea, comes up with a better solution. I've been in meetings where even though that's a better suggestion, the entrepreneurs go along and just said, we're doing this anyway. We're doing my way or the highway. Yeah. I'm thinking, no, hold your idea lightly, hold whatever it is very lightly, and listen to the myriad of counselors as such, and then you make your decision for whatever reason. But have that learning mindset as well. Be open. My father, he used to always teach me. He said, if you believe you're right and everyone else is wrong, you're wrong. I don't care who you are. because it means you have a closed mindset. So you have to have an open mind to other inputs. At the same time, you also need to be constantly learning and have a methodical process of learning. So for me, every day, for 30 minutes, every single day, I'm reading, I'm listening to a podcast, and I'm doing some exercises, whatever it is, every single day. It's the constant accumulation of knowledge which will put you ahead of every competitor. It's the constant one. It's a
Michael,
bit
that's
like the
that this learn mentality. This it's definitely a habit of. It's definitely one of the seven habits of highly successful entrepreneurs is curiosity and learning. And I
oh
saw you. You came over here. He comes over here. He comes to the country, the U.S. and from Australia, and he's got a lot of meetings and stuff. And we traveled a little bit there. Went on a cruise together. It was a lot of fun with him,
yeah
his spouse and my spouse. Not together, like we had our spouses there. But anyway, so I saw him buy a book at the airport or one of what they called the Barnes and Noble. It was called Zero to One. Was it Zero to a Million
yeah
from
with Peter
by
Thiel. Yeah,
Peter Thiel? Yeah. And
yeah,
I'm like, here's a guy who's very successful entrepreneur who's made his millions of dollars. He doesn't need to read one
yeah,
more book, and he's reading a
yeah.
book. And
Correct.
I know you've read my book too. You've
Guess
read that book, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. And it's just fascinating to see successful entrepreneurs. And you hear about that with Bill Gates too. Bill Gates is always reading books and he's always learning. And you're like, he's a billionaire. Like he's any read any more books. He could sit there and binge on Netflix. Why would he be reading another book, Michael?
yeah. It's funny. I sit down and watch Netflix or something like that, but typically I'm watching Netflix such as about the birth of Uber or the birth of Spotify or something like that, or whatever. I love watching those sort of documentaries and stuff like that. It's because I love one of the cheapest things you can do for learning, so you don't make the same mistakes as everyone else, is read biographies. It's so cheap. You can go down and you buy a biography for $35, or you buy Start, Scale, Expert, Repeat for $30 or whatever it is. And you get a wealth of information from highly expert people in their field, or they're sharing about their life's journey, like Richard Branson or something like that, or whatever. And it costs you $30. And I hear entrepreneurs, they say, oh, I just don't read books. I'm thinking, well, you're just stupid. You really, you can go on a training course for $30 and you can learn so much. And I think as a part of learning is having that insatiable curiosity. So I'm constantly getting the very latest in science and technology and everything like that to my phone. I'm constantly getting it. And the reason why I like reading about that sort of stuff is I think they've solved the problem in their industry or their field or their discipline. I wonder if I can translate that into my business. And I go, oh, gee, I think I can translate that concept and into my business. Or just the mere fact of just feeding your mind new interesting things is good for you. It's healthy. So why not do it? Yeah. So I have this term, learn relentlessly. Yeah, just learn relentlessly. Just be absolutely relentless. You look at my study, for instance, at home. In fact, I've now given away most of my books. So I have them on my phone. But people, you go and look at someone's study, and they go, "Oh yeah, they got a whole lot of books." You look at my study. I read them all. That's maybe the difference to some other people. Yeah, I've actually read them, and I think there's a sense of joy in that. The sense of joy in learning. It's one of my foundational values is learn. And it's something I'm very passionate about. Like, for instance, I have in my business, I'm a firm believer that the founder needs to be the sharp end of the spear, right at the forefront. And I knew we had to go really down the AI front. It's like 12 months ago, even more than that, actually. I just began learning everything I could about AI. And I'm a firm believer, if you want to learn about something, you got to become it, you got to build it. So I end up building AI agents and all that sort of stuff. And just like when I was seeing the birth of the internet back in the early 90s. I said to myself, I need to learn about this. This is like transformational. I'd experienced the bulletin board revolutions, bulletin board systems in the BBSs in the 80s, and I saw the internet come along. And so I said, okay, I need to found an ISP so I can learn everything about it. It was almost less than it was less about making money from the ISP, although I made a whole lot of money. It was more about the learning journey because I knew that this was a transformational technology. There's going to be bigger and bigger businesses built off it. And it's the same thing with AI. There are certain waves that come through. And you've just got to, as an entrepreneur, just roll your sleeves up and say, I just need to learn everything I can about this. And let me tell you, you spend 30 seconds with Colin at his house or a restaurant or whatever, and he'll be talking about AI. And he knows so much about AI, and he's been experimenting so much with different things and launching businesses and trying things out and all that sort of stuff. It's phenomenal. He's one of these guys who just
And so little too. I know
absorbs
so
information.
little, and that's the fact,
Yeah,
Michael.
yeah,
Like I know so little, and then, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to learn. Like I'm not a geek. I
yeah.
only aspire to
You're
be one.
feeding your
Okay,
mind.
that's
You're
the
feeding your
reality,
mind.
and I'm trying to learn this stuff. And the more I learn, the more I can leverage. And AI will be the transformational technology of our lifetime. It will
Oh,
be the
absolutely.
biggest it'll be the biggest paradigm shift we've ever experienced. Tomorrow we're going to talk about that at 2 o'clock Eastern. I have to drop off right now, but this has been a great
Yeah,
show.
so
You've been
do I.
listening to the Complete Entrepreneur: 7 Habits of Highly Effective Entrepreneurs, which will be a national article on Startup.club. And Elle,
Yep.
thank you for joining. And if you want to write for Startup Club, we're looking for contributors. It is a phenomenal website, and we are getting huge attraction or huge amount of traffic on the website now. And the book Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat has won more awards than any other book in history for entrepreneurship.
Was it 37? Is that right, Colin?
37 global awards. Yeah, 37 global awards.
Fantastic.
I just agreed to become a Forbes Council member right now, so I'm now writing
Ah,
for Forbes Magazine and Entrepreneur Magazine. I will see y'all tomorrow, 2 o'clock Eastern, with my co-host Michelle Van Tilburg. But thank you, Michael, for coming down under
fantastic.
and
Great.
sharing with us your habits.
Okay. Thanks a lot for that, everyone. Take care in your own business. God bless. Bye.